Hey everybody. I've been receiving a lot of messages from you guys asking what was the experience like going through the initial type training and if there's any tips or tricks to go through it. And I've been thinking about this. What information would have been nice to know that would have helped reduce a little bit of stress and help ensure a positive outcome. So I put some notes together. I hope this can help somebody out there. Those of you who are asking, I guess the majority of you are PC-12 drivers upgrading to the 24, but there's some of you that are flying other jets that are transitioning. At the time of making this video, there's really only one, game in town in terms of who's providing type training for the 24, and that's of course FlightSafety. FlightSafety has two locations conducting training right now. They have two sims at the DFW location in Dallas, and I think they have one sim, but with a second one coming online at Paris in France at the Le Bourget. And both are fantastic locations. I've heard good things about both. I of course trained at the DFW location, being here in the U.S. And to provide a little bit of background on myself, I'm really a helicopter guy, right? I've been flying helicopters 15 years, ATP, a lot of single pilot IFR experience in multi-engine helicopters. Some time ago, I added all my fixed wing ratings, and this was my first jet type rating. And so it was a really positive experience. I had really great time going through the training at FlightSafety, and definitely learned a lot about the differences between, say, a 142 school like FlightSafety and some traditional 141 training that I've done at, say, like places like the Bell Training Academy, where you have a mix of simulator and aircraft based training. Of course, at FlightSafety, it's all simulator based training. In terms of expectations, about 90 days out from the commencement of your course, you're going to receive all your course materials. It seems that FlightSafety is moving away from physical course materials, and they're going basically fully digital, to the point that they actually offer you an iPad. If you don't have one, of course, most of you already have an iPad. You probably fly with it every day. But that iPad, you basically download an app, and that app you'll receive all your courseware and your course material, which is really high quality. But there might be some things that you may want to print out, like such as memory cards, to just be able to start studying ahead of time, ahead of showing up at the course, and start familiarizing yourself with some of the aircraft training material. Obviously, the flight manual, the FCOM, some of the ACE, the Honeywell ACE pilot guide. These are documents that you're going to be spending a lot of time in. So you have a lot of time. In 90 days is a tremendous amount of time to give yourself a bit of a leg up on the knowledge base. Once you get to the course, the kind of people that are there I think is FlightSafety's best asset, right? It's the quality of the instructors I found were really, really, fantastic people. Many of which have had, tremendous careers already in aviation, have been there, seen everything, have a lot to knowledge to divulge onto you, and very willing to share their experiences. My ground instructor, you're going to spend about the first half of the course. Course is about 28 days, I believe, and it seems about the first half of it is all ground, so classroom, and then the latter half is all sim. So you're going to get all the knowledge base out of the way. First, there's a written exam, and it's no big deal if you're paying attention, and then the latter half is the sim, which is pretty accelerated, and you're going to go through it pretty fast pace, and so we'll talk a little bit about how to give yourself a bit of leg up to make sure that you're not falling behind. So my ground instructor actually had a maintenance background, and that was awesome. I mean, really, really, like fantastic understanding of the systems and very scenario based. I didn't find the classroom boring at all. I mean, I was really interested in what what he had to say, and the way his teaching style I thought was really engaging. Um, the kinds of people that were in the class ranged from everything you can imagine, right? From people who only had turboprop experience in the PC-12 to multi-thousand hour, guys who had this was their fourth or fifth type rating, and so a wide range of experience coming into this aircraft. And but I thought the course was well geared for all of those people, right? So everybody was able to come in and do well. However, the PC-24 does have a bit of a reputation of being a tough type rating, or one of the tougher type ratings in the building. So at the DFW location, they teach obviously everything from Falcons, Gulfstreams, lots of different types of business jets. But the 24, for whatever reason, has a slightly higher failure rate in terms of people not passing the course. I don't say that to scare you. I think, we'll talk a little bit about what are the things you can do to help, put yourself ahead of that curve. I think in the majority of the cases, the kinds of people who maybe didn't do so well were simply just not prepared. It's nothing about the aircraft that is difficult. It's simply, I think, the way you approach your training material, and how you come prepared to the course, and how you use your time during the course itself. There's two ways to go through the course. You can obviously do a single pilot, what we call single pilot objectives, or multi-crew objectives. So the single crew objectives, it's what it is, right? You're the only crew member on board. You have to manage all of the process, task, all the tasks. You're flying the aircraft. You're dealing with issues. You're managing the SRM, using resources available to you, but you're on your own up there. Multi-crew objectives, you obviously get the benefit of a co-pilot to help you run through. Some people say that if you're nervous about going through the course the first time, maybe it's your first type rating. I heard some people say that it's maybe a good idea to go through the course initially as multi-crew objectives, and then come back and add your single pilot objectives. Personally, I didn't think that was necessary. I think with good preparation and just a good understanding of the aircraft, you can definitely perform very, very well single pilot. It just takes good understanding of the systems, and making sure that you are on top, and that your knowledge is super sharp, and your memory items are there. And of course, the piloting side of things, will come. They're going to teach you really good techniques. A big part of getting a leg up in the sim, and making sure that you don't show up to the sim not knowing where stuff is, FlightSafety provides something called the Graphical Flight Simulator. They actually have a whole lab dedicated to this, and these Graphical Flight Simulators, the GFS lab, is available to you 24/7. They had two of them. I never had any problem accessing or getting time with it. They seemed to always be available whenever I needed one. And I had a really good experience going in there, being able to, it's basically like a bunch of computer screens, and kind of a cockpit layout, similar to the sim, but all the functions are there. You can even take off in the GFS. You can load flight plans, calculate toll data, practice your flows, get the aircraft in the air, navigate the iNav system, understand how the FMS works, even run some basic emergency procedures. It's pretty full featured, and it really gives you a leg up in terms of, once you do get to the sim, that you're not sitting there trying to wonder, like, where was that menu? How do I get there? Because you've had time to do it. I spent hours in that thing. After the course was over, classroom was over at roughly 5 p.m. each day. kill a couple hours before going out to dinner. In the GFS, I did that a lot, and it was, I thought it would be a huge benefit to the value that you have available to you. So my recommendation is definitely use it. Um, the big thing, I think what gives people a tough time with this aircraft is sort of two things. So it's kind of two things I hear over and over again. One is it's a bit of a tough aircraft in the V1 cut. Um, Look, I didn't think so. I'm a helicopter pilot. Maybe we just know how to use our feet, but I thought the aircraft was not that squirrely in terms of the V1. Obviously, it's a we'll talk a little about technique a little bit in a bit here, but I think that the real thing that catches people or gives people difficulty with aircraft is the avionics package. If you've come from Garmin, or maybe you've never seen a Honeywell, Apex or Epic based system, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a learning curve there. But again, the graphical flight simulator puts you, well ahead of that. And the big difference, between say this system, the Honeywells, and say a Garmin, is the sort of path-based guidance versus pitch-based guidance. And all that really means is you're going through, it's a design philosophy that instead of depicting the aircraft's sort of pitch in time and space, it's actually depicting its path. And actually, considering that, what do? We use these displays to position the aircraft in time and space in terms of where we want to go. We want to go to the threshold of the runway. We want to avoid terrain. All of those things. To me, it makes total sense, and I have a really hard time going back to pitch-based systems after seeing the benefits of path-based. And so I think you're going to become a huge believer also in the way Honeywell has designed their flight deck, and I think it's really good. So let's talk about how to prepare. Personally, I would show up to day one with your memory cards memorized. The memory cards are essentially what FlightSafety has put together for you to, your TCE, your training center examiner, is going to expect you to know everything on those memory cards by memory, right? By the top of your, tip of your tongue, top of your head, you need to be able to have this information and be able to know it and present it in context during your check rides, and of course during your recurrence. If you're doing, whether it's in the sim and they might ask you a question, or it's during your oral exam. Everything's fair game on the memory cards. But it's not just the memory cards, and I want to emphasize that. Going through the course, I found that there were some additional, they call them foot stompers. And the foot stompers, if you're not familiar with that term, it's when your instructor's up there and he says something and he stomps his foot. And what he's telling you is, this is important, pay attention, because you're probably going to see it again. And I found that the memory cards are really good, very comprehensive, but they were lacking in a couple areas. And I ended up adding information in these couple areas that I found were sort of special emphasis items that I saw over and over again training center examiners wanting to talk about. And I'll share them with you. The first one had to do with fuel. So the fuel system on the 24, right, highly automated, pretty simple, excellent design. The stuff on the memory card is the logical stuff, right? Total quantities, usable quantities, maximal permissible imbalances, all that stuff. But I found that they wanted you to have sort of extra understanding of how the system architecture works with, say, automatic balancing. For example, what the CAS messages are going to come on at in terms of when the system is going to begin a balance, when it's going to give up balancing if it cannot satisfy that balance. These are just some special emphasis areas that, knowing is going to be, I think, an important differentiator for, how that examiner looks at your overall knowledge based on the aircraft. Another area where I saw emphasis needed is in the uh, pressurization system, the CPCS system. So the pressurization system on the 24 is, again, like many things on the 24, fully automated. There's fantastic logic built into it, a lot of safety built into it. Being a single pilot rated aircraft, uh, with the emergency descent mode. So there's actually a chart, and I'll put it up here, whatever. And in the FCOM, that talks about sort of the pressurization regime or the pressurization logic throughout the different phases of flight, and understanding, beyond, say, just the basics, like, you know uh, oxygen limits and dispatch quantities, and available minutes to passengers, and all that, which is in all the memory cards. I found myself adding more information. For example, how the system reacts when it's in a field high elevation, or you're using the cabin low mode, the cab low mode, which is obviously important for EMS operators. How it changes the behavior of the system in terms of when CAS messages come on for pressurization or altitude. What's the normal delta P operating range of the system? Um, the reason I think they like these as emphasis items is that having this knowledge is going to give you, obviously, a significant leg up during an emergency, right? Understanding how is the system going to behave, how is it reacting, when are abnormalities developing, why the checklist is developed in certain ways for you to check certain things during different phases of flight. All of these foot stompers, I think, are important, and so I found myself literally adding information to the memory cards on this, so that when the training examiner, and I saw several of them, like to use the whiteboard to write out, this sort of diagram. I think the expectation is that you can rattle off all those numbers, and you demonstrate a good understanding of the pressurization system of the aircraft. Another thing that I think is going to give you a good preparation for the course is the Honeywell PC-24 avionics videos. Uh, Honeywell put together these awesome videos, which are actually referenced in the ACE pilot guide. There's these little QR codes throughout the whole book, and they're really awesome, and it gives you a huge understanding of how the logic of the system is developed. I actually created a playlist of this, and in the channel, there's a playlist of all of these Honeywell PC-24 videos. They're on YouTube. They're available to anybody. I think it's definitely worth watching all of them. They're short. They're little bite-sized chunks of different information, but it's going to give you, a big, leg up on terms of, so that you're not just seeing this for the very, very first time when you're going through the course. And also, Honeywell does a good job of explaining the logic, like why things are developed the way they are. The aircraft has a lot of interesting vertical guidance abilities to add vertical guidance, different like visual approaches, and it can, all this path-based avionics philosophy is built in throughout the aircraft, and your ability to understand that, when to be able to use GPS based path guidance when maybe an approach doesn't offer one, and when you can't. There's some other points of emphasis there, when some limitations in the system that are going to be, again, foot stompers during your sim session. So watch the videos. They're free. They're available to you, and it'll give you a leg up. And there's I'll link down below to that playlist that has them all. The other thing I found really beneficial going through the course was adding your ATP. So I was able to add my ATP Multi at the time I took my check ride. Obviously, many of you guys know the prerequisites, so I won't go over that. But since I already had my ATP helicopter, I just had to do my written and my ATP CTP course, which I did at FlightSafety some months prior to the course. I took my written exam, had that all done. Obviously, made sure I had all my hours for the different categories that were required, and then I showed up to my initial, essentially in a position so that when I completed my type ride, they just added the ATP Multi, because, as you know, the ATP Multi ride is equivalent to a type ride. So if you just they're happy to help you do that. It doesn't add any more stress. It doesn't add any more workload to your initial course. So if you don't have your ATP Multi already and you do have your hours, get the CTP course done, get the written out of the way, and add it, because it's the right time to do it versus having to take another check ride in maybe another aircraft later on. It's a great it's a great move for your career. Okay, so once you wrap up the ground school, right, you take your exam. The next phase is going to be the simulator. I'm a big fan of getting those memory cards out of the way so that you can use your evenings. You don't want to be studying every night. It's a long day in the classroom, and again, staying ahead of the academic curve, I think, is important, so that you don't have to stress out. Right? That enjoy your time there. It's so much fun. I mean, this is, if you're a pilot, this is heaven, right? It's a fun place to be all day long, talking airplanes all day long. I loved it. But at night, getting ready for those sim sessions, I found that it was really helpful to be able to work flows and practice emergency procedures. That was a huge differentiator. The TCEs really like to see an applicant, who knows what they're doing. And I felt like a good way to help me get to that level of confidence with the flows was to use a cockpit poster. Now, unfortunately, they don't print the cockpit posters anymore. Again, it's all that digital delivery. But they do provide in your course material these really high quality vector-based PDFs that have, essentially your cockpit poster there. And what I did, I just went to a print shop and I had it printed, right? So here's the one I made. I put it on a board, and it's pretty large, so I could just stand it up, in my hotel room, sit in front of it, and just make all the mistakes with no one to see except myself, right? So, but getting through all the emergency procedures and the memory items, ahead of time meant that when I showed up to the sim, you're running through stuff and you're not having to hesitate or stumble. You know what you're doing, and that really helps things progress, ahead of the academic curve. And I think having the cockpit poster is a big help for that, because it's hard to do it in your head just looking at your iPad screen, physically reaching and it playing imaginary games with the poster is a lot easier than having to do it all in your head or in the GFS lab, which is available to you but limited for that purpose. So the other thing that I realize with the sim sessions is the memory items are obviously very important for you to master. But a big thing that I saw, a big pet peeve, if you want to think of it this way, is I saw some people, they would do the memory item and they would keep going. Like, obviously they knew what was coming up after that memory item and they would sort of progress, but they would do it without the QRH in their hand. And that's a big no-no. The examiners want to see you master the usage of checklists. And the PC-24 delivers with some really excellent electronic checklists that are obviously built into the avionics package, but also really high quality documents that have quick tabs. They want to see you master that usage. And so if you're doing a memory item, make sure that you're stopping at the end of the memory item, grabbing the QRH, getting it out, and then at the appropriate time, working the rest of the checklist, but with the reference materials in front of you. So don't get ahead of yourself. That was a big point of emphasis that I saw during training, in the sim. So proper checklist usage is a big one. And then the the kind of the struggle item that I think gave some people a lot of grief was the V1 cut. So let's talk about the V1 cut. Look, there's a lot of different techniques that I saw that were successful. I saw people who, again, had thousands and thousands of hours that developed their own technique with the PC-24. They're going to teach you, each instructor is going to teach you a technique that I think works pretty well. Let me share with you what works for me. Again, I'm a helicopter guy, so we're used to using our feet and associating directional control with feet input, because that's really how you fly a helicopter, right? So in the fixed wing world, that would be equated to like stick and rudder skills, that kind of ingrained rudder response to yaw. The 24 is no different. One of the challenges of the 24, I think, because it has such a low speed regime during landing, the wing is designed to obviously have short field performance. So on takeoff, it has sort of low, generally low rotation speeds and V1 speeds as a result. And with those engines mounted, high up on the fuselage, and the way that the aircraft is designed, the rudder is just big enough to provide enough authority to counteract differential thrust. So if you get behind the aircraft on a V1 cut, you can end up off the runway. And so the way to best counteract that I've found is when you get the failure, it's a full rudder input, right? So you basically put almost max rudder in, and just as quickly as you put it in, you're going to start taking it out. And the way I think about this is, your eyes glued to that center line, and as you put that rudder in, you're going to correlate the associate the rudder input or taking the rudder out as that center line starts to come back to you. So you're going to deviate slightly. Ideally, you deviate, minimally. You obviously want to stay on the center line, but that center line is going to correlate nicely to that pedal, and you'll notice that you're going to put in sort of more than you need, and then take it out as the center line comes back, and that'll give you, avoid the hesitation of having to feed in more and more and more and more rudder as the aircraft is deviating off the center line. So sort of put in more than you need, than you think you're going to need, and then take it out. That seems to work well. The other thing is, there's no need to be in such a hurry to peel the nose off the ground. Holding the nose down or sort of delaying rotation until you make sure that you have good directional control. Maintain directional control is number one on the checklist. There's a reason for that, right? They want you in control before you begin rotation and anything else. And so making sure you have the directional control prior to getting the nose wheel off the runway, I found myself sometimes rotating closer to V2. And so a little bit delay the rotation, but the aircraft's just going to have that much more, knots over its control surfaces, a little more stabilized, and then you begin the rotation. And keep in mind that right at 7 degrees, well, you can see it here in the background, the landing gear, main gear doors at 7 degrees will touch the ground. Obviously, if any hard surface of the aircraft touches the runway, you're going to red screen the sim. So you want to make sure that you're not coming off the runway in a bank, or nice and stable, bring it off the runway. They're going to teach you those techniques, and you're going to do fine. As you come away from the runway, you're going to pitch 9 degrees initial ANU, and the FCOM has these operation guides. Read them. They tell you exactly what to do. The Pilatus has thought through every single one of these processes very, very clearly, and so come prepared. Come having read those, and you'll see it is going to give you a big leg up in terms of understanding. And in those discussions with your instructor, they're going to like to see that you have read those, understood exactly what is the order of things. Don't reinvent the wheel here. Just do the procedure, and that tends to do have really good results. So as you come away, 9 degrees initial ANU, you'll get the gear up, and the cool thing is, once you get yaw damp on, auto yaw trim comes on. Auto yaw trim is a really cool feature. You sort of two systems. You have rudder bias, which is there to help you with a little bit of an initial rudder pressure, but auto yaw trim is the cool system that once it's on, yaw damp's on, you get this kind of double pump conformation on the pedal. That's that sort of tactile feedback that the system's telling you, hey, I'm on the rudders now. Your feet go flat on the floor until you bring it around the patch again, and yaw damps comes off. So really cool system. However, it doesn't hold the trim perfectly. So I would say about a quarter triangle out, it's going to. So that means you're going to need a little bit of aileron to make sure. About 5 degrees is typically what's about good to maintain the heading. They're going to hold you to ATP standards, right? So your scan has got to be good, and you need to be on the heading. You're going to drift on your first one. It's okay. But the point is that by your check ride, they want you ATP standards are better in terms of heading control, and it's easy to do because the way that the avionics are laid out, again, that path-based depiction, it's pretty cool to sort of glue it to the flight director, and you're going to be right in there. But you're going to need a little bit of aileron to hold it. Autopilot, don't be so quick to get the autopilot on. 400 feet is the minimum, so autopilot can then come on. Autopilot with the FMS speed regimes. Remember, this is an auto throttle aircraft. Will go ahead and sequence V2, and you'll be in the climb. One great way to fail a check ride, and I saw this happen, is getting the flaps up too early. Right, so don't get the flaps up too early. Don't be in a rush. The aircraft is going to help you fly the V1 cut, through the engine failure throughout the regime really nicely, but just take a breath. Let the aircraft catch up. You're going to be climbing for a bit at V2 until you reach your safety altitude. TOSA, by the way, know your TOSA, right? This is part of your toll data. You got to know it. It tells you right there, but have that in your briefing. Know what your TOSA is going to be. Your examiner wants to see you understand what is the goal. Your TOSA is not going to be 5,000 feet coming out of Memphis. It's going to be lower. So once you reach your TOSA, that's when you can hit flight level change. So hit flight level change. And what's cool about that is, and you'll hear me sometimes in my briefings, if you've watched my other videos, in my takeoff briefings, I'll say accelerate with Felch. What I mean by that is you're going to hit flight level change, and what that does is it tells the FMS speed regime to sequence 170. So your transition speed goes to 170. That's going to bring the nose down. You're going to do that at TOSA, and then the nose will come down, and you'll begin accelerating, which is cool because it does it all for you, and it also starts your second segment climb. Of course, once it reaches 170, the second segment climb will go ahead and begin. Your altitude select is set for whatever you coordinated your departure for. Maybe you've changed it because you coordinated with ATC. I want a runway heading 3,000, whatever. If your TOSA is 1,500 or 1,700, you'll hit Felch at that altitude. You'll accelerate at V2 plus 25. Then the flaps can come up, clean up the aircraft. It'll accelerate pretty nicely, and off you go. This thing has a lot of power, and it does really well single engine. Remember, it has ATR mode. So once it senses that you've lost an engine, it's going to automatically sequence ATR, which is going to take you from 3,420 per side up to 3,600. You do need to confirm that ATR came on. So that's why, step 2 is, step 1, maintain direction control. Step 2, confirm ATR. And it's really just a detent. You're just going to make sure that the throttles are into the ATR detent. It will do it automatically for you, but only if auto throttles are uh, or ATR is functional. There could be times where ATR is disabled for some reason, and you would need to calculate that in your performance data. So just make sure, get in the habit of doing that. Don't just assume that it's always going to be there for you. So that's the V1 cut. It's not a big deal, and I think if you kind of learn their technique, you're going to have enough time to practice it in the sim sessions ahead of you. But you want to use that time well, and not use that time trying to learn the avionics. They really expect you to have kind of a basic understanding of the avionics. So in summary, look, you're going to have a great time. Enjoy it, man. This is the coolest aircraft. It's the largest single pilot machine out there right now. Flight safety is super fun to be at, and just the people there, the quality of the people there, the people you're going to be training with, you're going to meet some really fantastic, make some good contacts, make some lifelong friends. And the idea is to go through as low stress as possible. If you've gotten to this aircraft, you've taken a lot of check rides in your life. This is just like any other check ride. Preparation means lower stress. Come to the check ride with the confidence of mastering the aircraft. And the thing is, if you get behind, if it's something you don't understand, it's up to you to ask for help. I mean, they have everything set up there to make sure that you succeed. So tap on a shoulder, ask for help. They're super willing to come out and go out of their way. There's nobody there who wants to see you have anything but a perfect experience. Just reach out, don't get behind, and just most of all, have a wonderful time. Good luck. You're going to do great. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me on Instagram or leave a comment down below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Have a wonderful time. Take care.